I'll be darned, we're back again. How we doing, ladies and germs, ladies and gentlemen? Pardon the dank, Grokoski, OG Bartholomew. I think I like this sense of humor. I think I like that. Because I think I do have an LG HD TV somewhere in my house. I think I probably do. Mojo Rising, what's up? Who am I missing? Buds is always in the house. Good to see you, Buds. How you doing? Here I am. It's me, Green Bicycles, sometimes known as Jack Green. Let's see here. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I do. A few people are watching the show, or at least one of the guys watched the show, Buds. He went to a store, Grow 5, I think it was, Grow 5, back in whatever, I can't give away his state. We got to keep that private. But anyways, I made a nice connection. He went in with 3 or 4 guys. They were wearing Green Bicycle shirt. And I called the store, and they're open to exploring some possibilities with Green Bicycles. So that was very cool. Thank you, Buds. We're going to get you some samples. Hopefully, we need to get some samples. Mojo Rising, where's it raining at? Where's it hot? It's beautiful here. Beautiful here on the Pacific Northwest coast of California. Beautiful day today. Let's see here. Oh, good questions. No, I started out originally by myself, by my lonesome, solo venture completely. And it was who my partner is now. I started getting my input. Okay. Let's go back a little bit. You asked, I love to talk about myself. Yeah, I used to go down to like NHS, North Coast Horticulture, or Bayside Garden, and I would buy the 50-pound bags that were like had a rip in them, and they'd give me a little discount, and or I have to buy them and pay retail, and that's what I used to use for my inputs originally, which is not sustainable. Anyways, I got hooked up somehow through my partner to buy the inputs from him. So he started selling me 50-pound bags at wholesale prices, which was a great thing. And at some point I said, why don't you mix down there? Why don't you mix my stuff for me? And he says, we're too busy. We're too busy to mix your stuff. I said, what if it's your stuff? Would you mix it then? And we started talking, and that's why I become partners. And that's why I have a mixing facility available to me. And that's the story. I hope that helps you. But yeah, I started out originally. Yeah, I actually opened up a garden center here in Crescent City started with 9 clones. Had zero money. I pulled that off. I had zero money. I mean, literally zero money. I paid for a half a month's rent with like 16 clones that someone gave me. And bam, that's what we did. What else is going on? Let me drop the link. Let me drop that link, and maybe we can get some content finally. Thank you for the question. Pardon the dank. No new update. No new updates on the no. My bad. Hey, good to see you, Aussie. There we go. You're always more than welcome to come and just blow us away with your wisdom and knowledge. Actually, I'm going to text my partner right now. Let's see here. Yep, something like that. That was it. I'm gonna let's see here. I'll do this right now. Maybe I will get an update. Maybe I'll try to. I know some people would like to hear from my partner. I've been wanting him to come on the show, but let's see what he says. Okay. Maybe we'll get something out of that. What else is going on? How are you guys doing? Any questions out there? Thank you for that question. Again, pardon the dank. It keeps You ask questions about me, I'll usually answer them because it's my favorite subject. Let's see, do I have anything to gripe about? Probably. No, I probably could grab, but actually, it wasn't a bad week. We're getting ready, gearing up for the summer season, and get a little more traffic up here. But it's okay. It's okay. It's only a little windy, but it's a little warmer. I don't have to turn on my heater usually during the summer. We don't have air conditioners here. Oh, guess we have a treat, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, from halfway around the freaking world, we have a guest. Let me gear up for him. Special guest. How you been, man?
Hello, how you going? Green Bicycles, today, mate. I thought I'd come in for a chat for a smoke with you.
Thank you. Is this? I see a new background. What room or is it a different building that you're in now?
Yeah, just different place, yeah.
Okay. Looks nice and white. It's tight and white.
Yes, good place to do stuff. I tell you what, if you're interested in new things, I can talk about a new study that just came out regarding the entourage effect.
You have a platform here. Anything you want to talk about, I'd love to hear it. Absolutely. Take a big old hit off of that bag. I'm going to take a bite of my little buddy here. I'm going to gear up for the show.
There's been a fascinating study that's been released on how terpenes can enhance THC's effect or the CB1 receptor, because THC interferes with the CB1 and the CB2 receptor. So they did some real rad studies on what terpenes actually enhance it, and the outcomes were fascinating.
Okay, before you give me legitimate, I've always heard myrcene is one of the main ones. Is that true?
Yeah, myrcene's a very good pain terpene. It's and it's one of the major terpenes that's in cannabis. It's always up in the high percent range. Or not, when you say, and I'm not going to elaborate too much. This is your show.
No. But you got the floor. Let me ask a couple. I don't know. I have some general questions. Maybe you can help me with the difference between a sativa and an indica. Okay, I've heard a couple of things. I'm sure. Well, the terpenes are probably going to be different ratios for sure. Or I'm wondering if there's any exclusive terpenes that are only that only come out or only expressed in, like, say, an indica or a sativa. And I've always told it was just the ratio of THC to CBD was the real big difference on the highs. Do you have any insight on that?
The second one's wrong.
Okay.
But the first one is a good question, because I wondered the same thing, because I'm caffeine sensitive, and if I have a sativa leaning cultivar, my heart rate goes up from, say, 60 to 80 from just sitting there. And I want to know why. And it's like why? And it's similar to the question that you asked. What's making those pathways link up?
Yes. I don't want to step on the toes of your I should have shut up, but I definitely want you to continue with your thought about the study. I don't mean that I distracted you.
It's your show, mate. Like,
no.
What you wanted to talk about is what happens. Is the way I see it. I'm not a rude person. So I just want to answer what you said. But whatever, I'm under direction from you. It's your show.
Okay, then, sir. I interrupted you when you started to talk about the fascinating study that came out. By the way, who did this study? Like, who does these kind of studies? That's right.
Well, at the universities, most people aren't funded by universities itself. They've got to apply to different bodies to get funding. So for all of these studies, most of them have external funding by different bodies. And like the Cancer Council will put in some money if you're going to do a study on cancer-related cannabinoids, that sort of stuff. So you've got to fund it yourself. Really, it's very hard. I'm an independent researcher in cannabis myself, so everything's just blooming hard, mate. I don't have people I can just go and write a spreadsheet out of what I need and it's paid or delivered at a certain time. I've got to work within a very minute budget. Well, I went a bit off the question then, sorry.
No, I understand. So the study, it was universities, and they did studies on entourage effect, kind of.
Oh yeah, let me bring up something.
Okay, let's hear.
Because like limonene, I should just bring it all up.
Limonene is a good one. Citric.
Yes, that's where there's quite a lot of terpenes that you can't really distinguish what it is because it doesn't jerry with our senses too well. Where limonene is a very good one because it's lemon related. Like linalool is related because that's the lavender smell that you get. So there's one's terpenol is another one that's related because that's turpentine, like metho spirits, turpentine, that's the major terpene in that. So there's ones that we can visually pick out. And they're three of the ones, that adds to it. I'm just going to bring it up. This is my last bag.
It's okay. It's okay.
So
we're not on the schedule.
So for like cultivars with high limonene, like sour diesel, for instance, you know that if it's a lower THC in your sour diesel, that limonene is just going to boost it up a bit. So if it's say a 17% that you've ended up to smoke or extract, you're going to end up with maybe a 19% feeling on the body because of the combination of the two.
So I just I'm bad. I'm bad manners myself. So when you said that, I something flashed at me, in the sense something similar to the wind chill fact, right? It's like, okay, it feels it's 19 degrees outside, but it feels like 14 or whatever because of the wind. So it feels that way. So I'm wondering, maybe if we can get to a point where instead of saying like it's 17% THC, we could, with the terpene added, we could say, well, it's going to feel like 23. You know what I mean? I mean, there might be a whole new industry on that, writing a book about it or something.
Well, one of the latest, I showed it on my show yesterday because I did a big breeding talk. It was on, they're categorizing, they're wanting to know, is really the sativa indica still a category or should they call it a chemotype now because of the chemical changes that are actually into it? Because most of them are hybrids. There's no real dominant, there's no real, like the land races are virtually gone now because everyone's just crossed everything. So that was the classification that was, mentioned. How you going, Stoney? Yeah, so it's interesting that was that'll do. Over.
And is it in some scientific circles, maybe I'm completely wrong, but maybe it's the U.S. government, there's only considered one strain of cannabis. It's only like indica or sativa, one of those two, and or is there actually like with a family tree and it's real, and like what are the what's the difference other than what they look like? And go ahead.
The cannabinoid family tree, it starts off with CBG as the top, and then as it develops into the THC and then the CBD, and it goes down like that. So that's its first, and then that's its the parent. So its first children will be the THC and the CBD from CBG, and then it'll go down again. Then the grandparents will be when it's aged. So you can age THC. Well, first it'll go into the acid molecule, and then you've got to drop the acid off it and change it into form THC. And then once it ages, it'll age after, depends how you treat it. Let's say 6 months, THC's changed into CBN, and it gives you that non-psychoactive effect. That's the cannabinoid family tree.
So before that tree, I was under the impression that I'm going to start at the very basic. I'm going to start with CO2 and water and sunlight, and you get sugar. And that sugar is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. And it rotates and flips around, and then it's terpenes. When it gets 5 carbons, it's a terpene. When it gets 15 carbons, it's a terpene. I don't know if they're at 20. I don't know if they're that heavy. But then don't the terpenes actually turn into the CBN or the first cannabinoid, or is that completely different paths?
Different paths.
Okay. I guess that does make sense because those paths were developed through time to through evolution to either for the local insects or whatever, right? I imagine it has something to do with dealing with insects would be my guess.
Yeah, epigenetics. The genetic environment changes. There might have been too hot or too cold spells, so things add to that to evolve it. I'm just going to look for here it is. I've got to share screen. I'll just briefly chat about it because I want to elaborate. I want to do nearly a whole talk on this because it's fascinating. I'll just show it to the top. So this was a study done in June 2023, this month. So it's selective cannabis terpenes synergize with THC to produce increased CB1 receptor activation. What's that saying is that the THC activates the CB1 receptor, and they've done a test to see what cannabis terpenes enhance THC to increase it or reduce the CB1 receptor. Do they enhance it or they go down? Well, it's a fascinating result, and it enhances it. I'll just go straight down. No. Here we go. So this is the bar charts here. The red line is the combined both of them, and the black line is just the THC on itself. So you can see in this one pinene, which is smells like pine needles. So you can know that if you've got it with pinene in it, there's a chance that it's going to increase the effect in low doses. To see on this x-axis down here, it's got the amount of THC, and it's only 1 and then 10 micrograms. So it's really, really low. So I would generally, for me, I usually like about at least 20 for it to be effective for me. So that this graph might taper off or something. So this is really only tested at low doses, but it still gives a result. So I was just surprised whereas eucalyptol, everyone knows eucalyptus. There's the limonene over here. Linalool is the lavender predominant extraction from that. There's your myrcene that you were talking about before. Ocimene, that's one of the lowest volatile terpenes that's in cannabis. It's around 60 Celsius or about 160 Fahrenheit. It's volatilized off. So if you extract or get any type of temperatures above that, there won't be any ocimene or CVG is at the same volatile temperature. What's another? There's terpenol down here, which is the major constituent terpene in turpentine. Over. Do you want to chat about anything? I just love that. You muted yourself.
No, that last one on the very bottom right, terpenoline, the last one. I have a little collection of terpenes. They're all probably synthetic because I got them on Amazon. But that's a beautiful. I love that one. Linalool it's real thick. It has got a very seductive smell. I like linalool a lot. But I'm wondering, you can see those graphs and everything. I'd be real curious on like how you get that data, but also just it seems like you'd be able to do that with like adding a little bit of myrcene or something to see if there's different. Are there any terpenes that do the opposite, where they slow it down a little bit? Good
question. Well, that's what this study was to find. Which ones react with THC and what do they do? And it was found that, we'll see like up here with pinene, look at that. It's actually tapered off. So if you were to put this, say, and test it at 20, that might do the opposite in what you're saying. Also down here with myrcene in low amounts, it does the opposite as well. So that's, yes, you go, sorry, over.
Yeah, so maybe in higher doses, those lines, they tend to converge. So maybe do they actually cross or do they look like see how they kind of converge at the higher doses?
I tend to agree, mate. Especially this one. Look, that's tapering off. Pinene's tapering off. So it's not like, see, eucalyptol's still rising. So this might be different. The ones that's still going up. But the ones that's starting to taper off, definitely myrcene. So it might be a bit more beneficial combining the both at around 10, not where we usually smoke around 20.
So much lower dose, you might see the effects a little bit more. Okay.
Well, this is really talking about what terpenes enhance THC. So you could sort of suggest that maybe that myrcene at higher levels might do the opposite to THC. It might reduce it. So if you've got a high myrcene cultivar with 3% or even 2% myrcene, that's impossible. But if it's really high like that, and it's say 20% THC, it might actually, to your body's effect, might give you 18% THC because myrcene's in a higher amount, as an example. That makes sense?
No, it's fascinating. But I try to look at the graphs when it says response. That's the vertical axis. So it's normalized to 1. It looks like. But
yeah.
What is that? Is there affinity, like an affinity for an electron, affinity for that in the cells? Or I would like to, if you sent me that survey or this study, I would like to actually delve into it so I don't understand, so I could realize how dumb I am. They're normal.
The curve, it's the dose response curve of the CB1 receptor.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So they've just tested for that. That's what I was reading.
Okay. So I'm curious, can they isolate those cells like outside of a body and like just see how they respond? I'm just kind of just thinking like, how do you do this? Fascinating.
They would put in a fake CB1 receptor, like one that works within the lab that synergizes and acts on a CB1 receptor. And then they would create that. And then they would do this simulation. If you probably read from the start, it'll probably tell you. I'm sure I don't like reading.
It should at some point in there tell you the methodology.
The pharmacology. Yeah. Gets right into it. Several studies. In vitro. Yeah, so they would have been done, in vitro trials. So it's all done because when you're doing secondary metabolite production, it's all in vitro in cultures because there's such microns amount that you're getting, even nano or pico amounts that you're getting out of them. So you have to multiply hundreds and thousands of them to actually get, usable amounts. That's why some of those essential oils and of the like, they're really expensive.
Yes. Very cool. So how do you how do you come across these articles? You do searches for how do you come across these things?
I've got a very nice LinkedIn profile and I'm connected with quite a few other researchers and they share all their notes and I just get all their studies and go through them and that's about it.
Good. So LinkedIn, I've always thought LinkedIn is actually useful. You're telling me from what I just have it, but I never. What turned me off about LinkedIn when I first got it, it's like if you go into the page, then it searched out all my contacts and sent them stuff. It kind of was a little bit I don't know, but I don't
invasive.
A bit invasive. That's right.
I use it. It's more professional. It's more. There's no shit. There's a very limited amount of just rot that's been put up there. And if there is rot put up, there's so many people just this doesn't happen. This doesn't happen. Why don't you check this pathway? What about this? So and I don't accept many people. I've only got people there's so many people that want to be connections that I haven't got connections with because they either want to sell stuff, they're connected to a company. They're not interested in cannabis research. That's only what I'm interested in. So all of my feeds come up with all the latest agricultural things, the techniques that they've done, the studies which different the legal countries around the world, which is quite a lot of them now, have put all these studies and tests into, and they've got all these really rad outcomes. Some of them aren't favorable, some of them are. And I just like to really go through them all.
That's it. You're a scholar at heart.
Well, I really like there's good potential in this cannabis stuff. So I wanted to know why, and once you get into it more, you find out it's an amazing thing that it's going to take many educated people years to try and understand because of that entourage effect. It's not one mineral or one element you're dealing with. It's multiple elements, then multiple thousands of terpenes, and then you've got to combine them. They all give different outcomes. So it's such a hard field to be in. So that's why so many people. So it's challenging for me, and I really love it because I like to be kept interested, or I get bored pretty easy. So it's nice to get all the neurons firing this way and that.
No, it's probably even a lot more complicated than trying to predict the weather. I mean, infinitely probably, because that's pretty complex, the weather systems. But yeah, human systems, I think with maybe these new with these quantum computers, I think they're going to start figuring some of the stuff out. I don't know. But I forgot what I was going to say. I'm getting high too.
Bud says something about fatten up a plant. Here's an experiment I'd done a few years ago. Did you know if you got the anthers on the plant, the pistils, and if you cut them in half, that it stops the perigonal bract, the calyxes, stops them growing upwards and expanding. They start and grow sideways only. So it turns normal buds into big, fat, square-looking things. It's an amazing experiment. It's pretty hard to do because you've got to get in there and just go chop and just like, oh, gosh, I just killed its reproductive parts. But yeah.
No, you're exactly right. That's an old tried and true method where you top just like, I didn't know, but yeah, they would explain like you hold the bud up and pinch it and cut the top of it off. Just that little bud thing, a little pistol.
You've got on the female reproductive parts, the styles up the top and then the stigmas down the bottom, and then you cut in between that. Yes. Just in between that, two of them. About that.
Yeah, it makes super branching too. That's something. Yeah, it's actually it's branching differently when they do that, but I didn't know what it was called. But yes, no. I think there is some real Okay, this is what I was thinking about. This is what I lost it with, like, all the studies that can be done to how to enhance or change variables or with cannabis using terpenes. But a whole nother level is, and they're starting to do it on the West Coast, just north of me a little bit, is starting to use psychedelic drugs. They're like doing research with cannabis. It's like mixing those, and there's such a world that needs to be explored with those kind of entourage effects. But it's fascinating. I agree. What's the name of this kind of field? Is endothysin or something? How do you pronounce that word? You know what I'm trying to say? And because there's
what field?
It's there's a name for a garden that has all psychoactive. My yard, I've been developing it to be. I have a lot of psychoactive plants in my yard, from roots, bark, all cactus. I have a ton of things that are, and there's an endothysin garden or something it's called. I'm bad with
I know that word you're talking about. There's a person in the UK got in trouble for it a while ago because they had a fascinating one. Erroid. No.
Yeah, that's another one. Aeroids, ERROID or something like that. Yeah, I know that one. There's another one too, but no, I grow poppies. I grow medicine.
Well, why not? It's medicine, mate.
It's a plant.
Yes.
Whoever buys my house after I'm gone is going to maybe stumble into some things that will fascinate them. They better not eat everything in my garden, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And this is it. I think. Entheogens.
Entheogens. Oh, I've never heard of that one.
I think that's it.
Okay.
How do you pronounce it?
G'day, American one. A few people have written it there, haven't they? Must be right.
I got some good people in my chat. They don't give me too much trouble. They give me a lot of knowledge. What else is new? What's so okay. I think the last time you were, I don't know if you were in the process of moving, I remember something about a small house that you're putting together that you could travel around the world with. Is that still? Am I wrong? Where are we at on that?
Uh, I don't know. I don't want to talk about me too much. Honest.
Okay, I tell you what. Yeah. Okay. We won't.
I like talking cannabis stuff. Or talked about other people.
I like to talk about people. No.
Nice drama.
I like to
There's
talk
too much,
about I like talking about ideas a lot more than people. But I
there's
just
too much good cannabis stuff late going on of late with all the experiments and things with technology, because technology.
I think I lost you. Well, what do you expect? He's only halfway around the world. Come on now. Yeah, I know. I understand.
And even like there's new technologies coming out to test different parameters. So the home scientists can also do the things now like the qPCR machine, which you'll want to test your terpenes profiles and cannabis profiles. They can get them for about $1,500 now, like surprisingly cheap. You don't need $50,000 or $100,000 to get a basic starting one. So there's some cool things like that in the testing realm. So things should be only improving in the years to come.
No, that analytic, and that's a kind of a, that's a strange one too in this sense. And let's say we start getting the science down and say, okay, we know that if it's 2% myrcene and 24, 24% THC, and we throw in limonene at 4%, we're going to maximize that effect. Will that be the same case in two different humans? Because our body chemistry is different. Our pHs are different. Our amino acids and we're different. And sometimes in drugs, I firmly believe, just from talking to people, are experienced much differently depending on your body, who you are, right? And I think it's physical.
Exactly right. An example of that is a friend did a study on his relatives and seen what type of edibles affected them, what dosages, and he found that his grandparents were I think 5 milligrams or something really, really low. 2 milligrams, something incredibly low affected them. And that's an example. So if they were combined their what they're used to in their body with how much THC is needed to turn their receptors on and off, that combination with the terpenes is going to give a different effect. Where with me, I need a larger amount to turn those receptors on, and that's going to give the different effect like it was showing on those bar graphs before. So you're dead right.
So that just even makes it more complicated. It's kind of like I always thought a really good business idea, and I still believe this, and I've thrown it out there, is CBD dog treats, because people love their animals. And it's weird because how can you know if it works?
They're already out there.
Yeah, I know, and I think it would be a great business. I do, because people love their animals here in America, especially. But and there's one thing about what I said, I'm being a little facetious, is you can make a dog treat and there's zero regulation on it. Zero in this country. I don't know about your country, but there's no agency that says what's in it, or I don't think anything. I'm not, but they're not tested.
I even think for health products, there's something along those lines as well in Australia for releasing them to the market. You don't have to. Oh, I can't remember. It was something really weak. It's not like China where they have no food safety standards, but there was something really weak. In other words, like you were just saying, you can easily get them out onto the market.
Yeah, there's no yes, and it's like, how can you make claims like it makes your dog feel better, unless they smile a little bit at you. But
that's it. You can go and say whatever you want to market it, but you have to put the active ingredients in there accurately. So you can go and say, my CBD cures human cancer or cures dog cancers. You're allowed to say that legally. But yeah, it'll probably get reviewed, shit, etc. But you're still allowed to sell. That's what's happening with all of the world's food now. Is everything's getting marketed incorrectly, and people are getting fatter, and they don't know why. And it's just because people are selling. There's too many good salesmen. Over.
Rumboy might have caught me on this one. I don't know. You could be right, but it's a lot less than food or medicine. I know that, whatever it is.
Yeah. CBD is very accepted all over the world now. It's because no psychoactive component cannabinoid in there like THC, Delta 9.
Is on the evolutionary chain, because maybe I'm wrong, because I think you might have said this, that okay, when you're making either CBN or CBD or THC, do they come from the same parent, or they come from different branches?
No, it's the same parent. It's the same.
Which one comes first?
Hang on, if I got it here, cannabinoid.
They have the same atomic weight.
CBG comes first,
and then CBD.
No, I'll show you. I'll just bring up a chart then so you can picture it.
I would love to see this, actually.
Buds. What do you want cannabinoids? So is that in secondary metabolites, possibly? Cannabinoid family tree. I reckon it'd be secondary metabolites. There's heaps to look through. Oh, there it is. Cannabinoid family tree, nicely labelled. I'm just going to share. Pardon the dank. Yep, see what pardon the dank says? You're right onto it there, mate.
Yep. So he knows the chain. Yeah, I'm wondering if there's ways you can if there's the terpenes help convert those one way or the other, or if they're pretty set in their ways. When I don't know the chemistry. That's fascinating. The chemistry. The biological chemistry that's going on there.
So here it is, the start of the cannabinoid family tree. You've got CBG up the top as the mother.
Okay.
Is it sharing?
Yep.
And then it goes and forms after that, and then it forms the THCA, CBDA, CBCA, CBG, and it'll form the what's it called, the mature version of CBG, because this one's still got the acid molecule attached to it. So after that drops, after it goes into the daughter stage, it has more properties, more anti-properties that it works on. And then after these molecules here are heated, they react even further again. So that's when they'll change into THC. They'll drop all the acid molecules. And then after it's heated a bit more, THC's into THCV. And then after it's aged, both those THCV and CBDV age into CBN. And that's the real sleepy stuff. So if you've, like for instance, I got some Australian medical cannabis, and because they import it from Canada, the stuff I've got, it's 6 months old, I was told, and it has no THC left. It doesn't get me high at all. It only makes me sleepy, and it's not that strong. So I know that it's been aged in the CBN. I'm getting the full CBN effect.
Interesting. Now I'm curious. They just say aged. That's a pretty broad term.
Because there's a maths equation for the aged. You've got your temperature, you've got oxidation, you've got heat. There's a few different things that come into that. So you can go it's mostly oxygen, I suppose, and heat. So if you want to put it at a higher heat, you're going to age it faster. And if you're a high amount of oxygen, you're going to age it faster as well. So that's the maths equation you could throw into that.
And conversely, it'll store better, cooler with less oxygen.
Yes, and that's right. So you can store it. You can at the extreme. This might be 9 months if you store it and freeze it basically and age it really well. But at the heaps of oxygen, heaps of heat or whatever, it's I've seen it age in 8 weeks, 10 weeks. It gives a different effect.
That's fascinating stuff. Actually, this is good stuff right here. Very good, interesting stuff. So you can so the fact, and I've known some of this, and that's why I've talked about this before. Why don't the burping the jars? I don't burp my jars, and I always said, because maybe I'm wrong, but I always thought that chlorophyll breaks down more efficiently anaerobically. That's what I was heard. So that's the reason I did it. But there's something else going on there too, is that the THC is not breaking down as much with less oxygen.
How can the chlorophyll break down anaerobically when it's in aerobic conditions, though?
Well, from what I heard is, well, it's good. I'm glad you're calling me on this. Is that it's just more efficient. It's the chlorophyll that tastes green. That's the green taste, right? That's the bitter, unpleasant taste of cannabis is the chlorophyll, and it breaks down, right, to, I don't know what it breaks down to, but it's a pretty sophisticated molecule that needs a lot of energy to keep going, I imagine. So when it breaks down, and it happens faster anaerobically. That's what I was told. Maybe what, and it's one of those things. I don't know if it makes a big difference, but I never burnt my jars. I kept them closed for a month or two, and then open it up, and then it's usually amazing. Some people are like real worried. I think if your cannabis is dry enough, you don't have to. You got to worry about, it's the moisture that screws you on that one.
Correct.
And also those. Have you ever seen those iron shaving packages? There's these little, they look like a sugar pack, but they're filled with iron shavings, and they're oxygen absorbers because they rust. So they're in their own little sealed thing, but the oxygen get to them. So if you popped one of those in your curing jars, it removes the oxygen. Boom. Well, it takes it out eventually through chemical reaction to make rust. But that's actually a nice way to preserve too a little bit. It's because, oxygen is a booger. Oxygen is a beast.
It is. It's the best electron acceptor. It'll destroy everything.
Oh no! In fact, I think one of the theories on of the Earth of evolution is oxygen killed almost everything. When oxygen started being produced, it killed everything.
Yeah. The whole biology changed. Yep, when the algae came out at 3.5 billion years ago. That's Juan Nito says the chlorophyll is a good date activity. Chlorophyll is actually, it's got a molecule in the middle. It's a magnesium atom, and then it branches off with 4 nitrogen anions connected to that magnesium cation in the middle. That's its molecule. That's its breakdown of chlorophyll.
And I'm sure you've seen this, which is absolutely freaking fascinating. If you look at a hemoglobin molecule, right, it's almost identical to a chlorophyll molecule, except it's not magnesium, it's iron. That's the metal in the cage.
Fair income. Wow, and that looks different color.
Look at those two. They're almost an identical molecule. It's a trip,
cool.
And that metal in the cage is a real important. It absorbs a lot of stuff. It can absorb a lot of energy.
I'm pyrite. Yes, that's actually mimics. If you add water with that mimics amylase, and is a seed dormancy breaking tool. What you were going to say?
I wanted to sound smart because I finally understood something you said. Isn't amylase the enzyme that breaks sugar? I mean, breaks starch into sugar.
Yes.
Yes.
The amyloplastids, that's where the starches come from, in that plastid. And that's why amylase is the enzyme for it.
No, it's in your, and there's a neat little experiment because you have it in your spit. You have amylase in your spit. And if you put a piece of white bread on your tongue, it tastes sweet. You can just really sense sugar because it's turning that bread into sugar. You can actually taste it.
I know we've got myrmidase in our saliva, and that actually is a good enough protectant against bacteria. So if you get clones or something, for instance, and you haven't got your sterilizing thing, you can, believe it or not, spit, and our spit is a antibacterial property, myrmidase.
Yeah.
It's just, what else do they call it? That's the end. Anyway, sorry.
No, that's it. Yeah. So is it the amylase that does that? Is that the protection? Because I imagine there's a lot of stuff in our spit.
I don't know. I just know of that myrmidase because that was just come up in my studies a while ago, and it was because it's called something else. It's a more common name, and then you look into it, and it's actually the enzyme. Someone help us out here? This is so simple. It's probably because we're just I'm nicely toasted. Woohoo! Some things just don't stick in my mind. See, this is my after vape material.
Okay, what do you do with that?
This will be, if you get out your microscope and you look under it and you see shiny stuff shining back at you, that means it's still got some goodness in it. It's still got some trichome, and inside of that trichome, there must be some constituents. So I want that. I don't think the compost wants that as much as I do. So I'll just put that through a bubble wash and get rid of the smell and get rid of everything and see what's left.
Okay.
Because it smells like shit at the moment. It smells.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Let's see if I can.
Fully gets rid of it. What do you?
I'm showing because I asked for updates on my new mix, and I don't know if I'm getting a focus. It says we should have something soon. Should be good humic content. That's what I was hoping for. So I don't know.
Humic content.
So I don't know if you've been following along with the saga of green bicycles. So I'll try to catch you up real quick. This is absolutely true. This is a true statement right there.
Oh, thanks, Raptor.
Yeah, he is. He absolutely is. We've had a tough couple of years, and this year's been even worse. Through me having to get another job and work another, whatever, keeping the business going. But we started thinking about it, and there's a lot there. Food is going to become a more important issue. More people hopefully are going to start growing their own food. I would like to. We're coming up with a new product that's domestic, so we're not importing anything from Indonesia or India or anything. So it's going to be a domestic, very sustainable product. We should be able to lower the price a fair amount. And I'm going to start marketing to home gardens, but that's not an easy task to market. If you think of, I don't know what they do in Australia, but almost every gardener in America goes to Home Depot or Walmart or these big box stores. So
it's the same here.
So I'm trying to do a strategy, and it's selling out. I don't know. You can say that, but I want to make a product, and we're going to market it to, say, a Tractor Supply or a Home Depot or something, and give that a shot. But
cool.
Everyone's going back to salts. Or when I say everyone, that's a little bit of an exaggeration because I do sell some stuff. But from the stores in Oklahoma, the stores in Michigan, the stores in California, when I talk to them, they say salts are the old new or the new old. And people are going away from organics, which, hopefully that'll turn around again.
The reason being is marketing. People are sold so easily. They're very gullible. If they say, look, I'll get big meat yields, I'll do this, just add this product, they will give it, I'll just try it once, why not? That's because everyone wants it fast. We're living in an anxious society, mate. And education is the only way to steer people out of that cycle. And unfortunately, it's not sustainable. It might be true, and you are going to get big yields. You're also going to use a lot of pesticide and herbicide, fungicide, which pollutes the ground. Not sustainable. So if we want to be sustainable and continue this for hundreds of years, we can't do it their way. And that's what big marketing doesn't want people to know that. This is the reason why, mate. Everybody's sold. It's only the people who have the education or who have maybe also the space too, because people do live in cities and they can't do as much as they'd like to. So there's a few things there that's just plays so well on the big man capitalizing and the earth suffering. Over.
No, and I talk about this a little bit. I don't know if you ever looked at it from this point of view too. Is say one of my ingredients is alfalfa, which it is. Good. Think of all the hands that have to touch to get that alfalfa to my into my bag. All the people who had to touch that, from the planting the fields of tractors, the store. I mean, and then think about monopotassium phosphate. It's two guys in a lab coat on a swing shift can probably make 10 million pounds, right? In big vats or what. I'm sure it's a fairly simple process, but only one or two people, literally only one person, has to touch that to get it to you. Whereas when it's organic, even if it's a mine, think of all the rock phosphate. There's a lot of people who had to touch that. That's all labor. There's a lot of diesel fuel involved in all of that, moving it around. So, Yeah, and salts, and that's and by gosh, we got like 20 people I'm preaching to tonight. Thank God I got 20. Maybe we can convert a couple. But yeah, it's and that's what I try to do is educate, and that's I'm thank God for people like you and all all the others disciples out there that are trying to get this out there. But yeah, I think it's going to turn around. I think when food prices go, I think they're up. I've been predicting, doom and gloom for a while, but I think that food is going to become a worldwide issue seriously. Um, and why would you have a green grass yard when you can actually grow food in it or back? You know what I mean? And people will start to realize that again. 100 years ago, they knew that. They've forgotten all of that. That's my thoughts.
It's the world's population's gone from 1 billion to 6 billion in a matter of 100 years, and they don't know how to feed it. So they're introducing all these fast methods, and they're realizing these fast methods. Awesome. These fast methods, are ruining the earth, and it's not sustainable. That's how they're killing everything. China's gone. The US groundwater, the lower 98% of the lower 48 groundwater is polluted from pesticides and herbicides, fungicides. There's nothing much you can do about that. It's for the water table cycle to go through and cleanse itself out. Holy mackerel, 100 years, 200 years. So and they want to continue doing this. So there's going to be more cancers, more doctors are going to be employed, but it generates business. This is why the government doesn't care, because it generates income. They're only interested in keeping the money going, not about health or sustainability. So everybody has to really change their practices, mate. And no one wants to do it quick, fast, because all these ads and TV, they do this. It's so cheap, and people do it, and it works. Why would you change something that works? Over.
Yeah, no, we're for short term. I think that's a trait of animals. Path of least resistance is a real easy one to travel, and I think
That's what electricity and plumbing does.
yes.
Yep.
It
So why
makes
not just follow it?
so
We made
no,
a 70% water. We'll just flow with the rest.
okay, a little tangential, but you kind of brought it up a little bit. I work with kids, right? And there is a noticeable difference. I'm going to say in behavior or in its diagnosis autism. And I mean, when I was a little kid, I'm sure it was out there. Now the numbers are staggering, and they're making predictions of by I don't know 50% of the males born in the United States they're going to be on the autistic spectrum of some level. A couple, and it's not. I don't think that's worldwide. And one of the things we pesticide the shit out of everything, and also I think the U.S., who has 4% of the world's population, I think we use about 80% of the world's prescription drugs, and all those hormones and all those drugs. A vast majority of this get urinated out of your body, if I'm correct, right? So they end up. I can't imagine what's if that's is that what's going on? Because I wish people would ask that question. What are we doing to our kids? Because something has changed. Something has seriously changed in my lifetime that I've noticed. And I don't know why people aren't saying, what is it?
Frogs have been infertile in the certain rivers because of that reason you just said, because of the female having the pill and then pissing out, and its half-life is so high, takes ages to break down. So the frogs are in that environment. Bang, they're infertile now. They can't breed. That's truth. That's a science paper that got put out a while ago. And what was the second thing you said? I'm no good with 2-question type things. Damn it. You said something else. There's a nutrient thing that was the reason why.
Yeah, the pesticides and the things in the water that don't do it. And also, I'm sure you know how Roundup works or whatever that
glyphosate.
It kills a pathway to a critical amino acid in a plant, is what I understand, which in that critical amino acid is critical for animals. And that's what it does. It keeps the plant from producing those. It's just like as sinister as you can get. And I see it used today in people's yards. It's like, no, it's quick and easy. Let's just put this in our ground. It's quick and easy. It works, but it's and that gets in the water supply. And also, I've heard is this whole idea of organic gardens is kind of a joke because all the glyphosate that puts in it outgasses. It's measurable in the atmosphere. I've heard, maybe it's just a little wild, but if it rains, rainwater, you can test glyphosate in it.
Wow. Well, if they've just sprayed, if they've gone and done a big spray of a crop, and then you've got a low dry humidity, and you've got the converging airflow going upwards and evaporating it, that's going to go upwards. And
what we were getting to the pinnacle of the story. He'll come back, I hope. Thank you for tuning in. We've been about an hour. I'm sure love when Ozzy comes on. Love it. There you go. We lost you when you were going towards that, or you disappeared. It was a good story. We were talking about glyphosates. Yeah, going up.
Oh, that's right. That is evaporation.
Yeah.
Yes. If you've gone and sprayed on a crop, big field, and if it's dry, low humidity, that means and convective winds that are going to be taking upwards. They're not diverging, going down. I've done some weather studies in the past. That means that everything will be evaporated and going up and being caught in your cloud form to be transported somewhere else and drop down when it rains next. So there's a huge chance it can come down in your rain, mate. It also it gets in. It doesn't. It breaks down. It goes into the ground tables, and then it travels in the water tables, and it kills all stuff downstream and in the water tables too. And that's why most of the groundwater in the lower 48 is polluted.
Yeah, it's not.
I'm sorry.
We need some glimmer of hope. We need light at the end of the tunnel. And I don't know. As I get older, it doesn't seem to be getting any close. What needs to happen before sidetrack?
Marketing, successful marketing, because no one's interested in education. People want bro science now. They haven't got the time and effort to spend to do a course. They want to hear one person tell them the whole course and trust that one person and hope the hell that one person hasn't mucked up one word or sent a wrong thing. That's what's going on these days. So therefore, if that's the way society's going, it's marketing, mate. So it needs proof. So I would say to do something like that, you'd have to do some for and against and show people what the effort is. But the thing it comes back to is to do the organic way, mate, it's hard work. It's not easy. You have to put effort in. Compost, making compost, attending worm castings, doing leachette, all sorts of things. Where adding just dry powder and water, everyone really wants that. So to convert those people, it's like a laziness effort thing for the difference in a few metabolites, secondary metabolites. But you're going to help your kids and the kids' kids. So how do you get that through to a person? I don't know. Over.
I don't know. To me, it was when I realized, because I was part of that deal, the ecosystem too, where you bought new soil every run. It's like that was part of the deal. That soil was, it's not going to work that well anymore once you use salts, especially the monopotassium phosphate, especially. And it was like that was just considered. And I had a big pile of dirt in my backyard, and it was like that's insanity because that's expensive end work. But I tell you, after I use my soil for 5-6 years, it's better. When you're just amending it with organic, you're making soil.
Well, with a product like your soil, it's for sustainability, where you can keep it and you want to just work it a little tiny bit and it's going to stay the same and it'll just benefit forever. Where if you use other people's techniques or ways or the big man's way, that's going to be always adding pollutants to kill off bugs, to kill off your beneficial bugs. Therefore, it's only going to, that's the cycle. Bad bugs come in, you kill all the good bugs, bad bugs are going to come in again. And that's going to be, you're going to continue doing that. And that's going to go down under the earth where people can't see. They forget about that because they can't see it. And they think, it's all right. It's not all right. And that's why the ground in China you take a lot of remediation to try and bring those earths back to good working function again.
No, and some of the things, like when you do use salt, they're lacking so many things to keep a plant healthy. It's just more than it's just more than macro or micro. There's also biomolecules that plants absorb and share, aren't there? I mean,
Yes, there are.
so
Bioaccumulation, it's really full on with heavy metals, toxicities, pesticides. It can accumulate that in all sorts of little bits of tissue around inside the dermal tissue, vacuoles. There's the trichomes, idioblasts.
It's so you
Pardon?
can grow with just MPK numbers. You know, you could actually probably get pure salts where you're literally just those MPK and make, you know, isolate magnesium where when you have how many atoms are in a protein
Oh,
or
no,
fat?
what depends.
A lot more than a salt, probably by
Yeah.
tens of thousands a factor, right? Proteins are pretty big things. You know, salt molecules, what, 8 atoms? So
No.
yeah,
Oh,
you know, so you can
no.
you can mathematically look at the periodic table, the elements, and look at the salts. Say, yeah, we can blend these salts together and make a perfect mix for that plant. But it won't be that. It's a little more complicated than that.
Well, also with organics, 45% of phosphorus is remaining in your soil after you do a crop,
At
after you do a
least,
run.
at least.
Because a lot of the organic phosphorus is contained in DNA. So all those microbes and things in the fungi in there, they've all got phosphorus in their DNAs. So wherever that's contained, it's just bound up and immobilized. So to mineralize it, to change it back to its mineral state, that can be broken down with the right microbes. So if people go and pollute the earth, they've killed all those chances at using phosphorus their next run, virtually for free. They won't have to add anything if they haven't got a phosphorus dominant cultivar.
No, in fact, some of my major clients that would have their soil tested, that's what it showed always. And it was a weird conundrum because, you know, it always showed excess phosphorus, because and I always, you know, I didn't put it to DNA. I put it to, because it's usually bone meal. Bone breaks down a lot faster. So, you know, when they do the soil test, they're putting phosphoric acid on there and breaking it down and seeing what's there, right? So bone meal breaks down really, really slowly. The good news is it breaks down really slowly. The bad news, it looks like you have too much, you know, because they'd always say there's too much phosphorus. And I say, you don't really have to worry about it because it's not that available to the plant, right?
We've been talking for a long. I've got some. One of my last classes was it was written last year, and it was soil to do on soil. I can't remember it now. Sorry about that. But it was a really good one, and it brought up the elemental breakdowns of what's residual after different things and how to organically source it. And I was fascinated to find that it was in the 40s, that range that was left over. I'll see if I can have a quick look for it. I'm trying to find everything here for you.
Okay. Actually, I got an interesting purple sunflower. Thank you. We do a little bit. I think we talked a little bit about but we do talk a lot about cannabis growing because for whatever reason there seems to be. But I definitely want to talk more about gardening. If you have any questions, there's a lot of history and track record with like our ingredients working very well in flower, citrus, and vegetable gardens for sure. But anyways, thank you for tuning in and ask any questions. There's a lot of really good knowledge in the chat. And sometimes tonight we have a good guest who would actually probably have some good information.
All right, I'll share a bit of a phosphorus talk for you.
Okay.
So phosphorus, the form that we want is the H2PO4 minus is the form that we want because it comes in two forms and that's pH dependent. So the pH that we want is about pH between 5 and 6 and that's this form. So if anyone says about this form, no, we don't want it. It's way too high. I'm just going to this goes heavily in depth into it, but I just want to also show you what's left over in the soil. Phosphorus.
I would like also to see that phosphorus cycle too. That's kind of, you know, those cycles, the nitrogen cycle, the phosphorus cycle, those are really interesting. But go ahead.
See all the different sources. That's very complicated though. Organic phosphate. Here we go. Constituents. The organic phosphates constitute from 20 to 90% of total soil phosphorus. I want to see what's remaining over after the nature is about 62% of soil organic phosphorus is still unknown. Forms of soil phosphorus. No, we only want one source, calcium phosphates. Oh, this is where it's blended. Uh-oh, it's going to make me a liar. Maybe this isn't the right slides. Soil, phosphorus, origin, and nature. Oh, here we go. Sorry. Uh-oh. Unless I must have gone past it. You like the phosphorus cycle, huh?
Yeah, I don't really know a whole lot about the phosphorus cycle. So how does it work? So it just basically, which is a real interesting topic. You never have to fertilize a ground that you don't harvest. You know that, right? It's like that's or a little bit, because like look at all the grasslands like in the United States, and they were there for hundreds and hundreds of years or thousands of years. Nobody fertilized them, but when the plants died, that's what I'm seeing from here. That they go back. That's how you get the phosphorus back in the soil from the plants dying and just being tilled in.
Yes, and the residual microbes that are there still, because they go through cycles of dying off and stuff. So they've got their DNA in there, which also can be mineralized and be, readily used. Because that's it. You've got two types. Mineralized is when you exchange into a mineral form, and mobilized is when that mineral is bound up in something. It can be bound up in DNA, can be bound up with another mineral, but it's got to be unlocked and exchanged into that mineral. Because when you feed salts or from the bottle, from the big man, they're usually mineral forms. So they're already broken down and readily available. Like plant wants NH4, ammonium, or nitrate, NO3, as the only two forms that the plant can uptake. So if it's in NO2, in nitrite, it won't be able to take it up. It's got to be broken down by nitrobacter and formed so it can be taken up, as an example. The other ways that phosphorus gets into the
animals and manures. I see.
Yeah, animals manures comes in, and the plant's broken down through the biossoil. And there's also fertilizers been put in. It'll also add to it, but I don't really want to do the fertilizer way. I only suggest doing fertilizers as foliar. What's it called? Can't you help me? When they've got not a toxicity. What's the oxygen toxicity? Deficiency. So for deficiencies is the only way that I suggest using any mineral fertilizers to remove them, like 50 ppm, 80 ppm mixes to remove magnesium, etc. Other ways that it can get in, that's pretty much it. Or atmospheric deposition is the other way, just from deposits from the atmosphere, like you suggested, through rain and other ways. That's about it. And it can be broken down a lot of ways. That's what the green thing is. It can be broken down and exchanged. And the red things is how it removes phosphorus out of there. So leaching, but it's usually minor. And then runoff when it's on the surface. And then crops use it. So that's why it's residual. It maintains a lot in your substrates after if you do it organically. Over.
And at a very basic biological level, one of the reasons phosphorus is so important, maybe, isn't it have to do with, well, that's how in a ribosome, and that's how energy is transported in cells. Is a phosphorus. Is it so every
ATP. Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. Adenine triphosphate. Phosphate. Yes, so that's a part of the energy. That's the cell currency to get its energy, each cell. So it's going to produce the ATP, and then it works out from there. You're right.
So it's extremely important.
Out of the 17 essential elements, it's number 5 on the list. I'll show you them if you.
For me, oxygen's number 1. I don't care what you say, but I'm going with oxygen.
Well, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen are the 3 first ones, and they make up 95% of the plant's needs. And then, out of that, it's carbon and oxygen are 45%, and then the hydrogen's 5%. And then it goes under than that into your minerals. And then nitrogen's at 1.5%. Here, I'll just show you instead of telling you all.
So you don't, okay, I always spit out numbers that I don't know exactly, but there are roughly, I think, for mammals, 23 essential atoms that you have to have to live. In plants, it's like 19, and it's a
17 now. It's got
17,
revised.
17 for a plant. What is it for a human? It's
Oh,
20.
God knows. I don't know. I'm into cannabis, mate. Humans are too technical.
I think, or animals in general, I think it's just like 23. It's not a whole lot more. But
This is an old one. Sorry. I found an old one. I'm not going to go in because I know you want to get out of here. You don't usually run this late.
Well, I'm going.
This is actually, like you were just saying, there's been, in 1970, they added nickel into it. It went from 16 to 17. And then it went up to 19. They added silicon and another one into it. And then after 2017, they revised it and they made them a few elements like silicon as a beneficial, not an essential element. So it come back to change the essential elements back to 17. So that's what it stands as of 2022, something like that.
No, I didn't understand why silica wasn't considered a plant food, but it isn't still.
It's a beneficial element. It's not an essential element because it's very beneficial to cannabis, extremely so.
No, and yeah.
So
but
here
it's like, what's the difference between being beneficial or a food?
Well, essential means that without that element,
it's not beneficial. Yeah, but you're right. You're absolutely, because you can grow hydroponic with salts and grow marijuana plant without any silicon. But yes, it's not essential, but it's definitely helps a plant's strength in its immune system. And I'll shut up now.
Yes, with pests and stuff, and its cell walls. There's some really cool stuff with the silicon in cannabis. This is to show the essential elements that's required plants by cannabis, and it's 96%. Well, it's 95% actually is taken up of your first three, and they all come from the air. You don't have to do anything. And then after that, the last 5% comes from nitrogen. The first one, 1.5, and then potassium is 1%, calcium 0.5, and then it goes down further to phosphorus, where it's 0.2% of the nutritional requirements of plants is needed. So it's very, very low, all these elements, but still they're still essential for it to finish and bring out the genetic potential in your cultivar.
So from what you're saying, what does that chart say, that magnesium or calcium is more important than phosphorus? There's more.
No. It's when people have CalMag problems, it's usually because of the pH. Because if you go to a pH chart,
yes, you got a load of. You're locked and loaded.
This hasn't got pH. I'd have to stop and share. Actually, this has got more because I got pH sections.
Kids study chemistry. Study organic chemistry.
pH. Anyway, what happens with the calcium and magnesium is it's very tapers off. Once it gets into about 5.5, it tapers right down. So it makes it unavailable to the plant. So a lot of people have pH problems instead of CalMag problems.
So now some people, and I don't know, I'm just going to randomly say, some people might say like too much magnesium prevents calcium from absorption, or is it a pH? Is it more of a pH issue?
No, that's true with both. Some elements do reign over other ones. It's called Mulder's wheel. And in that wheel, it's got all of the things that work with elements and work without elements. I've got that wheel.
I have no doubt about that. I agree with Mojo here.
Mineral nutrients.
I always point out what's interesting, what's fascinating to me, and I don't know if you've heard me talk about this, is that we get almost every plant gets everything from pretty much everything from the air. And if you consider nitrogens in the air, ultimately, and water come from the air, mostly, right? Everything comes from the air, not the ground. So, I mean, the vast majority of that plant comes from the atmosphere. We think, we need to make the ground so good, the ground's so good, the ground's so good. No, we need to make the atmosphere so good. That's what can't change. That's what has to be right, is that atmosphere, right?
It's massive effects. Yes, the abiotic and biotic stresses put into it. It can change things humongously. Epigenetic swing things. Did you know I can get 3 different phenotypes out of one genotype? I've done that with Pink Death Bubba. Yeah, I'll show you. I'm sharing now. This is for the difference in the phosphorus. I was saying there's 2 forms of it, your H2PO4 minus or your HPO4 2 minus. You'll see the pH is down here. The one that we want, as it goes up here, it's in this range. So that's the tester that we require is to test this element, not any other elements, the monovalent. So that's that one. The pH chart. This is the pH chart where it shows, see, as it starts to taper down when it gets into the 5s. So if people's CalMag's pretty similar to each other. So if it dips down, your pH, you're going to make it not available to the plants. So even though the stack's there, it's still just not available because you have to maintain these pH parameters for the mineral to be able to be unlocked. And this chart also shows a bit of a bonus for you. It's got fungi and bacteria. And the reason why this is cool is because it shows that also if your pH goes below 5, you're going to have a very limited chance with bacteria in your substrates. And bacteria is what's needed to transform and all of these immobilized, locked up elements into mineralized elements for the plants, roots.
But what I get from this graph, which is kind of interesting, and actually I want to ask you a question too, is that because you always hear, pH to between 6 and 7, which actually looks pretty good between 6 and 7, but it's definitely better to err on the side of being too high of a pH, too alkaline, right? Because it doesn't seem to like have dramatic effects at 8 or not. I guess the iron maybe and the manganese down there might be kind of funky, but yeah, I guess so. And here's the question I'm finally getting to is whenever I brew tea and I hear this, and it used to be a concern of mine, is the pH would usually go from, like, if I start at 7, it'll go to 8. It real consistently buffers to 8. Almost any water I start with, it'll buffer up to about 8. And that freaks the little people that, it's like, well, it should be around 7 at least. But I don't worry about it because it works. Would it work better if I pH'd it down to 7 when I watered with it?
Well, like you said before, most of these elements are pretty close. But when you consider phosphorus, look at this now. If you're sitting on 7 or above, you're into the actual different section on phosphorus, which is the HPO4 2 minus. So it's the divalent version. So it's a little bit, and it's not actually accessible well until you're up about pH 8 to 10. So if you're going about pH 7, you're sort of only got 50% amount of phosphorus that you can actually get out of that. The elements you can pull out of your substrate because of a pH only issue. So if you were to go pH 6.5 there, you're going to have, look at that, massive more chances, 80% chance in getting the phosphorus out of the substrate that you want. So this is one good example of why pH is so important.
So I guess it wouldn't hurt to try, but you think maybe to pH it down to, say, 6.8, 6.5?
Yeah. I always like to go 6.2, 6.3.
And then just it should absorb better. Maybe suggest that during flowering. Maybe what if we mix citric acid into the tea and have it a flowering tea? Would that
citric acid? Well, that'll react worse. That'll alter the pH too.
Well,
yeah, more hydrogen in.
It'll bring it down, right? That's what I want to do, is bring it down to, like, say, 7. Figure out how much it takes of citric acid, so when the tea brews, it'll be at our 6.8, and say, well, this tea is really good for the flowering stage. Damn, I need someone to help me market. That would work, probably, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and then the different times you can do a batch reactor with putting different chemicals in there, and that would have different reactions. So you could say 15 minutes after putting this in, the tea will be ready, because that's enough time for the chemicals to mix through and produce the elements that you want. I don't know much. I shouldn't be talking chemistry. I'm not really good at chemistry.
But, no. Is anybody?
Yeah, I suppose.
No, you know a little bit. I do. I love chemistry is fascinating. On here, wild tangent. Maybe you don't want to go here because I'm not a UFOs are here among us. I don't know. I'm not convinced, but it seems to me, I don't know. It doesn't even seem to be big news anymore that there is our government tacitly putting is. What do you feel? You haven't you pay attention to any of that, or is that just way off topic? There's someone a government of I guess he's an ex I don't even know the ex government official from one of these agencies came out and said, yeah, we have a dozen space a dozen things that were not made by humans.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I'm back here.
And that's a way off topic, but it's kind of interesting to me. I want to see something, but do you think we have 12 spacecraft that were not made by humans? If yes. They do, I want to see. You think we have them?
Yeah, I believe in aliens. I don't. The government's. I'm not going to say my thoughts on government, but yes, I do.
Okay, good. It's
hey, Raptor put a good question in about his CO2 and how he generates his organic CO2. Well done, Raptor. That's the go, mate. Yep. And Bud says, does that bring it up to 900? Yes, it can. Did you know that to make it from mushrooms, if you've got a 4x4 and if you want CO2 supply to supply your girls, you'll have to have an 8x8 of mushrooms to generate enough CO2 for your girls. That was a cool experiment done a while ago by a fella in Oregon. And you can also test the people who have those little hanging bags don't have a CO2 meter, because if they would have a CO2 meter, they'd realize it didn't do much. So you have to have heaps. And the way to measure living soil is by soil respiration. And that's through a CO2 meter. And that's by seeing how much activity or respiration you've got from your microbes. And if you've got heaps of activity, it's going to respire heaps. I've had my meter up so high where I've got a vent because I've done this way of CO2 for many years. So I just thought I'd add that. Good on you, Raptor. Keep up the good work.
No, I'm going to follow up. I'm going to follow up with that too. I got actually a call a couple of weeks ago, and I think it was from Australia, if I'm not mistaken. And the guy was kind of excited. He goes, he said, your team makes CO2. And I said, yeah. I said, well, it's living soil. Because if you have a really good living soil, that's animals, and they're producing some CO2. And he goes, we did an experiment, and I had to turn off my meters because it went so high. He goes, it goes up to about 800. And I said, well, yeah, I said, yeah. And I've actually measured that myself, just actually a good living soil. And you add some good fresh compost tea, it'll go up to 800-900 into a closed a place. So yeah, absolutely. The symbiosis of that, because where does the plant absorb CO2? Underneath the leaves, right? So you got the CO2 coming up from the ground, basically. It's like, yeah, that's how it works.
It's perfect. It was meant to be. And can I just say, for those folk that want to get a CO2 meter, I've just gone and sampled some. They're shit. To cut a long story short, you've got to spend about $100. These both have CO2 meters in them. They're about $40 each. They both don't work. I've got a very accurate data logging CO2 meter.
No, and yeah, CO2 is actually is fairly difficult, and the sensor itself doesn't last forever. It has a time to it.
Yeah, unless you get it. So for my advice with the CO2, spend about $100 and get a nice data logger. And they've got because to buy the CO2 sensor, if you were going to make your own in a dream, around $30. So how can you get a good one in a cheap unit that costs $30 or $40? So yeah, they're well and truly worth it. Bud said he's got one, and they're just amazing. After you get it, you figure out, wow, CO2 can be generated so fast in a tight environment by off-gassing. Or when you come in the morning, you go, wow, look how much CO2 has been generated from the Kelvin-Benson cycle from their breathing from the plants.
Or you breathing. It's amazing how much, like talk to your plants. Absolutely. Yeah. Breathe out on the CO2. It's amazing how much CO2 that we pump out. just in one breath. But yeah, that's why
Yeah.
I think talking to the plants is a good thing for sure.
For people with tents, they should, if they're going to make a phone call in where your tent is if you can, or close to it, because the amount of off gas of CO2, you've probably given enough to your girls for the next couple of hours from one phone call. So use it as a positive.
Can I tell you about, you might be able to predict what happened, but I had the bright idea. And this was the beginning of the downfall of my indoor growing. Is I always used to have these crazy ideas, but I thought, it'd be, because I was having mite issues, or people were having mite issues. I said, why couldn't we kill them with CO2? Why couldn't we, because plants like CO2, why couldn't we just saturate them with CO2 for a few hours or whatever? We'll do an experiment and see if we can kill the mites. So I built a chamber. Then it was like, well, how do you know how much CO2 is in there? Well, we had to build a custom CO2 meter that went from 0 to 100%, because what is a normal one goes to 0 to what? 10% maybe.
Mine goes to 5,000.
Yeah. So, but 100%.
ppm.
Yeah, ppm. This, you got to go to a million ppm. So that's the difference. So we built a meter, we set it up, got CO2 tanks, and this was where my mistake was. I went around asking, "Do you got any cones with mites? I want to get some mites, because I want to try this new." Built it all. It was kind of cool, actually. It was all controlled to keep the CO2 at 90% or 95%, and anyways, I don't know where I was going with this, but but it fried the plants. After like a day or two, the plants were just dead. I've never seen a plant die so fast, because the roots need CO2. Something needs CO2. I mean, oxygen. I'm sorry. It just fried the plant. So it's like, no, and then the bad part was the mites got out and infested the shit out of my place. So it was a failed experiment, but plants need oxygen too.
There's CO2 is heavier than oxygen, and so there's a problem there. So it can actually kill roots off pretty decently. When you're doing a CO2 lice of any biology, it's very dangerous, and I wouldn't advise anybody to do it. But I've been taught some different ways where you can do it for different microbes, and you've got to get it to 20,000 ppm, and that ppm in humans can cause brain damage. 5,000 ppm gives permanent disabilities in your brains on CO2. It really, really doesn't like it. So to do these types of things, be careful. Over.
I understood it, and I actually I had evacuation, so I actually had to be able, to purge the oxygen. It was quite a cool little thing, but failed experiment. But it was interesting. But that whole plant it turned to like sticks in a day or two. And the mites didn't die. So I've heard people flooding their rooms with CO2, like opening a tank to kill all the mites. But I'm sorry, I don't think it's going to work, guys. Don't do that.
Yeah, I think there's some better ways to do it. That's a bit, But anyway, there's so many different applications for different things,
See, when I talk about things, it's a lot different than when you talk about things. I appreciate it's a whole different thing, but oh my God, thank you for coming on. We've been here an hour and a half. I know your time is valuable. You're always welcome. I love our conversations, and I know they do too. So one of these days, I'm going to become a professional gambler. I'm thinking, when I get my 7th or 8th million, we're going to set you up.
Yeah, it'd be fun. It'd be good because there's so many experiments. It'd be good to just do, and then you get conclusive results. Or to get some meters, like an ethylene meter. I need $600 for an ethylene meter, and then I can tell different other pathways that are unlocked and why we should use ethylene at different stages. Because there's only suggestions on why it's good and why it's not. It'd be good to see at what levels it's cool. That's just an example. Another one is a stomatal conductance meter. It's a leaf porometer, it's called. And you actually get it, and you clip it around a live leaf, and it'll tell you what's going on with the stomata underneath it, the gases of what's happening. I think they're about $800. So that would be cool as to hook up and just see what's going on, put different elements, CO2 levels, different stresses, and see how the plant reacts to. Yes. Anyway,
Part of this breaks my heart a little bit. I tell you why, because you talked about marketing, and you need to market yourself a lot better.
I know this. Hey, I know I'm hopeless at it, and that's it. I won't be able. I'm nearly 50, mate, so I won't be able. If I can't do it now, I won't be able to do it in the future.
No,
I realize that.
Okay, it's just natural. You have. I'm not gonna blow smoke up your ass. Anyways, thanks for coming on. Do yourself marketing, because you should be having GoFundMe or something, because there are people that would you have great ideas, and you need. Anyways, I'm gonna shut the fuck up.
No, I want more of this. It's and also just to add to, there's a few people in the Australian community that have made it difficult for me too late. They have a few bad things happened, and they've gone and spread really wrong rumors. And I've lost a lot of subscribers of late too. And it's really hard for me to get started in Australia when these fake people. One was posing as a professor, and I found out that he's not a professor. So all sorts of problems created from that. And yeah, it's Dr. Nexus was his name, and he's not a real professor at all. It's just real sad. I don't know why people can lie so much in our community, but yeah.
No, there's something about, yes, part of the deal of, yes, I don't know, I can't explain it, but you got a real gentle, nice way. You're intelligent as fuck. You're doing some real interesting stuff in a field that's growing, pun intended. I don't know. Hopefully something happened, but I'm gonna let these fine folks get on, and I can get rid of my bladder issues that are starting to.
So yeah, tune in to me. I do a weekly show then
Yes.
at Aussie CC at Aussie CC is the YouTube thing. Every weekend. I think I did a really rad breeding one yesterday. Next week is one on roots, and the following week's on tissue culture. Trying to prepare slides for that.
So it's just like, I'm putting this in the thing. It's just like that. That's the name of your channel, just like what your name is, right? Aussie spelled like that. Aussie CC.
Yeah.
Check out his wealth of information, and he freely shares it. And you'll learn something every time.
Yes, my playlists have all my private lectures. So all my private agriculture and microbiology and plant soil science, I store them in my playlists. So there's thousands of lectures there that attain to different scenarios in plants growing, straight from the professor's mouths.
Purple Sunflower, yeah, you should check out his website if you're into like gardening at a next level. Anyways, I keep saying good night. Good night, peace. I'm going to get a good night's sleep. I know I will. And see you next week.